Hey, welcome to the Friday show brought to you by Woodbine. I'm Ray Paulick, joined this week by bloodstock editor Joe Nevills. Joe, you were up at Woodbine for the Queen's Plate. There's a lot, there's a lot going on after the Queen's Plate. This weekend, there's 4 stakes on Sunday, I think, that are associated with the CTHS sale. Guaranteed pools in the the pick 4 and pick 5. But let's just, before we go on to the subject at hand today, let's talk a little bit about the Queen's Plate itself and the winner, the 3-year-old filly Moira.
So there were 2 scenarios going into the Queen's Plate last weekend. One, Moira is the absolute star that we thought she was after winning the Woodbine Oaks by 10 lengths and change. She goes on, does the thing, and is everything that we thought she'd be. Or 2, the antics that she had in the paddock during the Woodbine Oaks, where she lost a couple shoes, she caused a lot of issues, and her head, she gets into her own head, loses the race, and all of a sudden it's in wide open field for a bunch of very able colts. What we saw was the first, very much so. Moira was an absolute star in this race, disposed of the field like they were nothing, had a fantastic closing kick. Jockey Rafael Hernandez had plenty of time to gesture to the crowd as they were going down the stretch. Like this was a star performance by a star filly, and it was really cool to see in person. Like the crowd loved this horse.
And do we know where she goes next?
I think that's still up in the air. I saw reports recently that they're thinking about foregoing the Prince of Wales Stakes at Fort Erie to perhaps get some grade 1 black type under her, perhaps the Cotillion, maybe looking at the Queen Elizabeth at Keeneland in a few months. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the biggest weekend of the year at Saratoga, where you were just before you travel up to Toronto.
It's been a busy month.
Some very good racing up there. Travers weekend. The Travers came up very strong. It's interesting that the favorite, I think, is a horse that is yet to win a grade 1, but there are some other grade 1 winners in that field. Epicenter is morning line favorite. How do you see this year's Travers?
Stacked. This is one of those fields where I looked at the draw afterwards and thought a really, really good horse is going to run 6th. Like it's that kind of field. I mean, we have Cyberknife in here. We have, Kentucky Derby winner Rich Strike. We've got Epicenter, early voting, Zandon, Artorias won the Curlin Stakes and looks like he could sneak up and do something. And then we got the Iowa bred. Don't discount the Iowa bred.
Iowa breds, how many have won the Travers? I'm going to guess none.
I'm going to have to go back into the history books on this one, but I think we might be breaking some fresh ground if Ain't Life Grand ends up in the winner's circle.
When you look at the history of the Travers, especially going back a ways, this is a race that I think it's not the Kentucky Derby. They call it the Midsummer Derby. But in terms of a stallion prospect, where do you put the Travers Stakes versus, let's say the Derby is number 1. I don't think anybody disputes that. Who's number 2 as far as the 3-year-old stakes?
In terms of the 3-year-old stakes, that's a good question. Honestly, I'm not really sure. I feel like the Travers is a very good second race to have. You can't make a stud career based off of just the Travers. I mean, we've seen the struggles that a horse like VE Day has had, and all he did was win the Travers, and he really kind of has fumbled and bumbled his way through stud. I'm honestly not even sure where he's standing right now. I think if you have the Travers and something else, you're solid. You look at a horse like Essential Quality last year. He had the Belmont. He had a really good 2-year-old campaign. The Travers put it over the top for him, and he was a top shelf stallion prospect. I think you need more than the Travers to be a top shelf stallion prospect, but it will get you in the barn, probably at a Kentucky farm, as long as you have something else with it. If Ain't Life Grand wins the Travers after winning the Iowa Derby and the restricted Iowa Stallion Stakes race before that, and he goes back to Prairie Meadows and never wins another grade 1, it's going to be a hard sell. But if a horse like Cyberknife wins the Travers, that's one of your top headlines for his stud resume, is that he won the Travers.
All right, let me put it to you this way. Which New York race for 3-year-olds is the most important? Because you've got the Belmont Stakes, the Travers, and let's not overlook the H. Allen Jerkins, formerly the King,
King's Bishop.
King's Bishop.
Yes.
That's a race that a lot of people want to win as well.
Oh, absolutely. As much as I hate to say it, because America needs to be breeding more for distance and endurance than it does, the Belmont is definitely third place on there.
Yeah.
Where it's a race between the Travers and the Jerkins. I would like to think the Travers still gets to Duke there. I feel like you see a lot more sort of classic type sires and ones who are going to start for higher stud fees that have won that. But let's not forget that there's been some very good horses that have won the sprint race that have gone on to very lucrative stud careers and started it for very high stud fees.
You talked about horses that kind of only won the Travers. I think Keen Ice won the Travers, got his deal to go to Calumet, and he has an offspring in this year's race. Rich Strike, the Kentucky Derby winner. Where does Rich Strike fit in this year's Travers?
Boy, he's the wild card. That's the only way that I can put it. I was talking about this on our Instagram account, my Ask Joe Anything series. Someone asked me my thoughts on Rich Strike, and I think we're still learning about this horse. It was only 2 starts ago that Rich Strike was, entering the gate as a nobody who couldn't win a race at Turfway Park. And all of a sudden, he's a focal point of the 3-year-old division. I think we're still going to be learning a lot after the Travers with him, unless he wins the race. If he wins the Travers, then he is one of, if not the top 3-year-old males in the country. That might be enough to secure him the Eclipse Award even. If he doesn't, then this is a horse that was kind of thrust into Grade 1 competition. We still really don't know what we have with him. He could be a allowance level horse who happened to get lucky on one day and got the perfect trip at the perfect moment. Or he could be a really nice Grade 2, Grade 3 horse who, is just a little over his head, but, put him down to the West Virginia Derby levels of the world, and maybe he'd be a very productive horse. We're going to learn a lot about Rich Strike into the late summer and into the fall. His story's not done being written yet. We still don't know what we have with him.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction here. If they go fractions of 22, 44, 108, then Rich Strike will hit the board. Otherwise, he's not going to finish in the top 3, I don't think.
He needs his race. That is for sure. I don't know. I don't really... With a very cursory glance of the field, I don't think we have any really suicidal speed in here, so I don't know if he's going to get what he's got there, but we didn't think about that in the Derby either, and look what he got. So that's why they run the race.
All right, so can anybody beat Epicenter? I'm sure the answer is yes, but who?
So short answer, no, I think Epicenter is your winner. Long answer, I really like Zandon. I've been on the Zandon train since the spring. I think he's been training well up in Saratoga. He actually, in losing to Epicenter, running second to him in the Jim Dandy, he ran the best Beyer speed figure of his life. He ran 100. He broke the 100 plane for the first time in his life. So it could be argued that he's getting better as he's getting older. I think he's a horse that relishes in distance. He's one that I'm going to keep my eye on. Morning line of 5-1. If he goes off at 5-1, I will take that all day, every single day. Artorias is interesting to me, a son of Arrogate, who won the Curlin. Has a resume kind of like his father, kind of coming into the Travers a little unheralded, but with some big wins before him. Good pedigree under him. If he got there, it wouldn't surprise me. That'd be a bit of history repeating. Last one that I want to keep my eye on is Cyberknife. Mm-hmm. I feel like he's really going under the radar for this race. And he's one that I keep forgetting how good he is until I look at his past performances. Aside from the Derby and, kind of a mediocre Lecomte, he really hasn't done that much wrong. He's been running a lot of big races and big situations and, doing very well for himself. It wouldn't surprise me to see him represent himself well.
So did Cyberknife, he ran terribly in the Derby. What was the excuse coming out of that?
The Derby is a hard race to run in.
Yeah. I agree. I think Cyberknife might be a horse on the way up. Mm-hmm. Zandon he hasn't done much wrong really, but Epicenter is so overdue for a Grade 1 win. I just don't see him getting beat here.
That's the thing. It's just, if everything goes as planned and every horse gets the ideal trip, and that's been Epicenter's downfall for, his 2 Triple Crown races, is that he ran into bad luck. He ran into a buzzsaw with Rich Strike in the Derby, and he ran into a bad trip in the Preakness and nearly overcame both of those. It's going to be a smaller field here. It's clear that he's comfortable over the Saratoga surface. I don't think he has excuses, but racehorses are good at finding excuses in the heat of the moment.
As much as Steve Asmussen complained about Joel Rosario's ride in the Preakness, I got to hand it to him. He didn't look for anybody else. He stuck with Joel Rosario, and I think that loyalty is going to pay off here because Joel he's going to find a way to get a good trip for this horse this time.
I agree. And he's been winning lights out up in Saratoga. He's had a fantastic meet. He's got a pretty hot hand. You stick with him.
All right. What's the other race that you're looking forward to seeing on Travers Day?
So, I mean, the most exciting division in horse racing to me in 2022 has been the older female division. It's been very small, concentrated group, but every time they've gotten together, it's a war. And I'm really looking forward to the personal ensign. I mean, this is a field of, they only got 5 horses in here, but these are the 5 horses that you want to see. We've got Latruska, we've got Search Results, Clairiere, Crazy Beautiful, Malathat. Any of those horses could win. Any of those horses could finish 5th. They're all very good. It's going to be a very strong race. I believe this is 4 of the 5 horses that met in the Ogden Phipps at Belmont back in June. And they're going to be meeting together again. A lot of them also butted heads in the Shuvi Stakes at Saratoga earlier during the meet. So this is a group of horses that knows each other very, very well, have faced each other a lot, and every time they do it, they put on a good show. I'm looking forward to this. Not necessarily from a betting standpoint. It's a 5-horse field. All of them are very good. There's not going to be a whole lot of price, I don't think. But from someone who just likes to watch races, sign me up.
Latruska to me is the most fascinating one in the group here because she's done so well in so many races. And then there's 2 races that just jump out at you. The Breeders' Cup Distaff, where she got caught up in a crazy speed duel with the Private Mission, I think. And then in the Ogden Phipps, when the Search Results did all the dirty work and hung on to be 3rd, but Latruska got beat 35 lengths that day. So yeah. I don't think they have any options with her, right? You just got to send.
I mean, that's what's worked for her practically every race of her career. That's the thing that got her the Eclipse Award. That's the thing that has gotten her to be favoritism in last year's distaff. She goes to the front and she either hangs on or she doesn't. It's a matter of who goes with her and whether they let her run off with it. I think this field is too good to do that, but she's beaten a lot of these horses in the past doing that exact same thing.
Well, the race that I'm kind of interested in seeing will probably be the shortest price of the day in the stakes races, and that's the Forgo with Jackie's Warrior. How did they come up with 6 horses to take him on? He's just been so dominating.
So I looked through the field, and I could only find 2 other horses that have even a sniff of grade 1 black type. And I think that's their pitch here, is that all you have to do is run 2nd or 3rd, beat the rest of the tomato cans, and you've got yourself some grade 1 black type. Maybe you make yourself a stallion prospect. And, if Jackie's Warrior has a hard sneeze or something, or just, doesn't fire that day, maybe you have a grade 1 winner. You got yourself a stallion all of a sudden. Why not? This is good. We need to see more of this. We need bigger fields for things like this. So, realistically, it's going to be Jackie's Warrior in a cloud of dust. But if it's not, someone is going to have a very good day. Multiple someones, the connections and the bettors who back them.
I know he's won at 7 furlongs. He's won at a mile, but I'm not convinced Jackie's Warrior 7 furlongs is a great distance for him. That's a long run to the turn.
7 is an important number, but I have another important number for you, Ray. 5, as in 5 for 5, which is what Jackie's Warrior is at Saratoga. Unbeaten. This might be unprecedented. Like this is something where this horse just gains a stat boost in Saratoga. And until he proves otherwise, I don't see why not.
Well, we will find out Saturday afternoon. It's a very good card. I haven't checked the weather forecast there. At this time of year, anything can happen. But Travers Day is always a big one. And maybe by next year, next year's Travers, Joe, you'll come up with a solid answer of where does this race fit in the 3-year-old picture for stallion prospects.
Well, I'll keep doing research. We'll keep coming back to it. We'll find out. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us on this week's Friday show brought to you by Woodbine. Don't forget, there's carryovers for Thursday. We don't know if it's going to be hit, jackpot carryovers, but guaranteed pools throughout the weekend. And Sunday, some big stakes races.
Go Ontario Breds.
Huh?
Go Ontario Breds.
Ontario Breds. All right, good. All right, well, thanks again. We'll see you next week.